Okay, let's talk materials. I have so many things in front of me right now, and I'm going to start with the yarn. So for the pumpkin, for the outside, the inside, and the stem, you're going to use a 4-weight yarn. I have this Red Heart Super Saver in the color pumpkin. Is it really pumpkin colored? You be the judge. It's the only orange I had, okay? I need to take that out. That's crazy. Okay, so for the inside of the pumpkin, I used, this is what I have left. I used another 4-weight yarn. It's just like a yellow. I don't really know the name of this, if it's Red Heart or whatever. It worked for the pattern. And then for the stem, I used a green. You can use any color combinations. You can use brown, green. Shoot, you could just do whatever you want. It's your life, okay? It's your life. You can, okay, anyways. This is so freaking weird. And then for the facial features, originally I used a 4-weight yarn to create the facial features, but put them on and they were a little too big. So you have the option, which I recommend, to go to a 3-weight yarn with a 2.75 or smaller hook for the facial features. In like whatever color you want your pumpkin's face to be. Another material in front of me are these magnetic snaps. So this is another thing that I used for this pumpkin. I had leftovers. I got these off Amazon. I made a wallet with them once upon a time. And this is another thing that I recommend, a magnet of some sort for you to put the facial features onto your pumpkin. If you don't want to do that, there's always the option of getting pin cushion, turning this into a pin cushion. So we have function and we have something that's really cute to look at for Halloween. That's an option. I used a 4mm for the pumpkin, the stem, the pumpkin out on the outside, and the inside of the pumpkin. I used a 4mm. You could go up a hook size, you could go down a hook size, but this is the size of the pumpkin using a 4mm with my tension. Everyone's tension is different, obviously. You're going to also need, this is a lot of stitch markers, but you're going to need 12 stitch markers. I got these at the dollar store, the Dollar Tree. I get like, it's like what, like 300 for $1.25. You could use yarn for your stitch markers, whatever. And the reason you're going to need 12 stitch markers is because we have 6 points at the top that we mark and 6 points at the bottom that we mark when we're creating these grooves and the pumpkins. You're also going to need polyfill, which I don't even have in front of me. I actually need to buy some more. Scissors. Hopefully I don't forget anything. Oh my gosh, I can't pick this up. Large eye embroidery needle. And if you use these magnetic snaps, you're going to need a sewing needle that fits through the eyelet of your snap. I also recommend that you have some sort of pins if you use the snaps to pin your snaps to the pumpkin so that it makes it easier to sew it. That's kind of how I pinned them down. So I think that's all the materials. So let's move on to the actual tutorial portion. Yeah, did I say you need scissors? Well, that's a given. All right then, bye, or see you in a sec. So I'm gonna get started by making a slip knot, and then this is the working yarn. I'm gonna loop it up, put my hook inside, tighten it down by using my other fingers in the back to pull it, and I'm gonna chain, and that's my magic circle. So I'm going to start by pinching the bottom of the slip knot magic ring and inserting and holding my yarn here, inserting and yarning over and drawing a loop and drawing through 2 loops for a single crochet. And we're just going to repeat that 5 more times, so we'll have a total of 6 single crochet. Okay, those are the 6, and we're going to take the tail out of the ring and put it back in and pull it out, and then pinch right here and pull. You just like hold it at the knot, just pull this, and it should be getting tighter, so just tighten that. And that's my magic ring, and that's my 6 single crochet. And I grab my stitch marker and put it in my first stitch. Yeah. In round 2, we're going to be single crocheting into the back loops. So what we're going to do is insert it into the back loop, the hook into the back loop, yarn over, draw through, yarn over and draw through 2, and that's our first single crochet in the back loop only. And we're just doing 5 more for a total of 6 single crochet. So just working into each back loop around. Okay. Now for rounds 3 through 4, which is just 2 rounds, we're going to do a single crochet into each stitch around, which is a total of 6 single crochet. So the first one's kind of like the loops are kind of bending toward the piece, but that's our first single crochet right here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is the last single crochet. And that's round 3, and then we're going to repeat that one more time. All right, that's 4. Now we're going to move on to rounds 5 through 10. That's going to be 6 rounds of this as a repeat. So what we're going to do is, over the first 2 stitches, we're going to do a decrease. So we could do an invisible decrease, or we could just do a regular decrease over 2. So I'm going to insert, I'm going to do the regular one, yarn over, draw up a loop, insert into the next stitch. So we're decreasing over these 2 stitches, and then we're going to yarn over and draw through all 3 of these loops. Then I'm going to single crochet into the next 2 stitches. And then I'll increase in the next stitch. And single crochet in the last stitch. And that's going to be what you repeat for a total of 6 rounds until you reach round 11. And I'll meet back up with you guys at round 11. For round 11, we're going to single crochet 1 and then increase in the next. Single crochet 1, increase in the next. This is going to be something we repeat 3 times. Single crochet 1, increase in the next. So that's 9 single crochet. Next, we're going to single crochet 1 in the next 2. So we do 1 single crochet in the next 2 and then increase in the next stitch, and just repeat that around. Single crochet 2, increase in the next. Single crochet 1 in the next 2, increase in the next. So that's round 12. Now we're going to work in the front loops, and the front loops are right here. So we're going to work into the front loops and leave the back loop unworked. So I'm going to work my first repeat. We're going to just single crochet in the front loop, and then in the next front loop we're going to work an increase, and that's just in the front loops. So I'm just going to repeat what I just did. Front loop, we're working in the front loop only. Single crochet 1, increase in the next. 1, increase, and just repeating that around. So we repeated that 6 times total, and we have 18 stitches. Okay. For round 14, we're going to single crochet 2 or 1 in the next 2. In the next stitch, we're going to work a single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. And that's what we're repeating around. So we're just going to single crochet 1 in the next 2, in the next stitch, single crochet 1, chain 2, single crochet 1, and just repeat that around. All right, this is the last stitch of the round, and I'm moving the stitch marker, and then we're going to skip this stitch and then slip stitch into the next stitch to clean the edge up a little bit more. Then cut the yarn, and yeah, just cut the yarn and kind of pull this right here and sew this in. We're gonna make the pumpkin. We're going to create a slip knot. We're not going to tighten it. So we're gonna create the first part of the slip knot where we fold our yarn over and through like a slip knot, and then pull this loop up, insert your hook, tighten it, and then chain 1, and that's your magic ring. So we turned a slip knot into a magic ring. Then we're going to pinch on this side where the tail is and hold it with our left hand, and we're going to insert our hook, yarn over, draw up a loop, draw through 2, and that's our first single crochet stitch. We could put a mark right there, like a stitch marker, to mark the first 2 loops of the single crochet. So we're just gonna single crochet 6 into this magic ring. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to unravel the tail because it's twisted in there. That's once, and then we're doing that a second time. And now we can pinch right here and then pull the tail through, and it's going to cinch this opening closed like a magic ring. And there we are. So now that's round 1 complete. We're going to move on to round 2. Work 2 single crochet into the first stitch, which will be called an increase. And we're repeating that around. So we're going to put 2 single crochet into the same stitch, and we're repeating that around. And when we get around, we will have 12 single crochet total. Okay, for round 3, we're going to start with a single crochet in the first stitch and then increase in the next. And that will be what we repeat around. Single crochet 1, increase in the next. Just repeat that around, and when you get around, you're going to have 18 single crochet in the round. Okay, so that's round 3, and now we're moving on to round 4. Round 4, we're going to single crochet 1 in the next 2 stitches, and then increase in the next, and that's what we're repeating around. 1 in the next 2, increase in the next. And for this round, when you get around, you will have 24 stitches. All right, this is the end of round 4. For round 5, we're going to work in the front loops only. So in the regular stitches, we have our hook. Usually when we're working in the stitch, normally we'll go through both loops. but for the next round we're going to just go into the front loops of the single crochet, and we're going to leave the back loops for when we work the inside of the pumpkin. So we leave these back loops unworked for right now. We'll use them later, and we're just going to be working into the front loops. Round 5, we're going to be working everything in the front loop like I just said. We're going to single crochet 3, and then we're going to increase in the next stitch, and that's what we're repeating around. We're gonna single crochet 1 in the next 3, increase in the next, and that will be what we repeat around. When you get around, you will have 30 stitches total in this round. Okay, so that's round 5 right here. Round 6, we're going to increase again. We're going to single crochet 1 in the next 4 stitches, and then in the next stitch we will do an increase, and that's what you're repeating. 1 in the next 4, single crochet 1 in the next 4, and then increase in the next stitch. So if you repeat this around, you will have 36 stitches in the whole round. Okay, that is this is round 6 complete. Moving on to round 7. For round 7, we're going to single crochet 1 in the next 5 stitches. And then increase in the next. And that's what you're repeating around. When you get it back around, you will have 42 stitches total. Right, this is round 7 complete, and for round 8, we're doing another round of increasing. For round 8, we're going to repeat this. We will single crochet in the next 6 stitches. Okay, and then in the next stitch we'll do an increase, and that's what you're repeating around. Single crochet in 6, increase in the next, and when you get around you will have 48 stitches. Okay, this is round 8 complete. We're going to move on to round 9. For round 9, we're going to single crochet 1 in the next 7 stitches. And then we will increase in the next stitch, and that is what you will repeat around. Single crochet 1 in the next 7, and then increase in the next, and when you get all the way around you will have 52 stitches total. Okay, so this completes round 9. Just single crochet into each stitch around, and when we finished round 9 we had 52 stitches, so we're gonna single crochet 52 or in each stitch around. Okay, so I worked my 8 rounds, and moving on to round 18. So in the first 2 stitches, we're going to be doing a decrease, and I'll show you. So we insert our hook. To do a decrease, you insert your hook, yarn over, drop a loop, insert your hook into the next stitch, drop a loop, you'll have 3 loops. You'll have 3 loops on the hook, and you have 3 loops on the hook. You're going to yarn over and draw through all 3 loops, and that's your decrease. That's the first part of your repeat. Then you're going to single crochet in the next 7 stitches. Oops. So that's what you're repeating. Decrease over 2 stitches, single crochet 1 in the next 7 stitches, and repeat that around, and you will have 48 stitches at the end of the round. Moving on to round 19, we're going to start with a decrease, and then a single crochet in the next 6 stitches. That's what you're repeating around. You'll decrease and then work 1 single crochet in the next 6 stitches all the way around, and you will have 42 stitches at the end of the round. This completes round 19, and for round 20 we're going to start with a decrease, and then single crochet 1 into the next 5 stitches, and that's what you're repeating around. So repeat this around, decrease over 2 stitches, single crochet 1 in the next 5, and when you repeat it around, you're going to have 36 stitches when you get to the end of the round. For round 21, you're going to decrease over the first 2 stitches and then single crochet into the next 4, and that will be what you repeat around until you have 30 stitches in your round. So this is the last stitch of the round, and we're going to remove the stitch marker. We're going to close off the round by skipping this stitch right here and then slip stitching into the next stitch, and then slip stitching again. So we're slip stitching twice, and then you're going to want to cut your yarn long enough to sew in a tail, and we're just gonna use the hook to pull that loop through and tighten it a little bit, and then we'll sew that into the seams, or we could just pop it in and, you know, deal with it later or whatever. All right, so this is the outside of the pumpkin made. We should still have a stitch marker inside, so I'm going to set that aside for right now. So I'm going to grab a secondary color, which will be like the inside color of a pumpkin. You can choose like black, yellow, any color you want the inside to be. This is just the color I chose because I feel like it looks like the inside of a pumpkin. Anyways, so we're going to take our pumpkin, the outside, and we're going to flip it. so that the inside is now the outside, right? You can hide that inside. I actually think I'm gonna pull this piece and hide this on the inside as well, just to get it out of the way for when I'm crocheting. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is attach the new yarn by making a slip knot, which I find is my favorite way to apparently attach yarn. You can attach it any way. This just gives me a more seamless join. I'm gonna join, I guess, one stitch to the left of the marked stitch. So right here, I'm just inserting the hook with the slip knot on the hook, inserting, yarning over and drawing up a loop, and then drawing through these 2 loops to create a standing single crochet. And then I'm just going to single crochet 2 more times. So that's a total of 3. And then in the next stitch, I'm just going to do an increase. And then I'm going to repeat this. So I'm going to single crochet 1 in the next 3 stitches. And then increase into the next, and that's going to be what I repeat around for a total of 30 stitches around. And when I get right here, I'm just going to, I'll meet back up with you when we get right to this spot, because we're just going to kind of jump from here to this stitch, and it'll be seamless. You won't really tell. It's just going to be the inside of the pumpkin. So we're just making a second layer inside the pumpkin. Okay, so this is the last 4 stitches, and I'm going to single crochet into the next 3. And I did meet up with you guys here because I wanted to show you guys how to work over the stitch marker area. So just work the last 3 single crochet, and you can just jump to this next stitch and insert and do your increase. Yeah, so your last increase is worked in that stitch, and you'll have 30 stitches total right there. And I'm just going to show you next, we're going to do round 6. So we will be working 1 single crochet into the next 4, and then we're going to do an increase into the next stitch. We'll have 36 stitches around when we get to the end. Okay. So for round 7 repeat, we're going to single crochet 5, or 1 in the next 5. And then increase in the next. And that's while you're repeating around, and you will have 42 stitches in the entire round, and we'll meet back up here. Okay, so for round 8, we are going to be single crocheting 6, or 1 in the next 6. And then we're going to work an increase right into the increase. So we work 6, and then we're going to increase in the next. And that's what we're going to repeat around until we have 48 stitches total. Alright, so this is the last two, or the last increase in round. So that was the last increase of round 8, and we're going to round 9, and we're going to single crochet in the next 7 stitches, and then do an increase in the next. And that's going to be what you repeat for round 9. And that will be the last increase round. So we did 7, 1 single crochet in the next 7, and then increased in the next. And you're repeating this around until you have 52 stitches in this round. Just kind of see that it's, the base is round enough, and then yeah. Okay, so just like for the pumpkin, for rounds 10 through 17, we are just going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around. You'll be working that for 8 rounds total until you reach round 17. Okay, so I did my 8 rounds of single crocheting in each stitch around. And I am at the point where I'm going to start my decrease rounds. So for round 18, so what we're going to do is do our decrease over the first 2 stitches like we did for the pumpkin. And then we're single crocheting 1 in the next 7. And that's what you're going to repeat around until you reach the other side. You should have 48 stitches in this round. And yeah, so just repeat that around, and I will meet back up with you when you have 48 stitches total. All right, this ends round 18. For round 19, you're going to decrease over the first 2 stitches and single crochet in the next 6 stitches. And you'll repeat that around. You'll single crochet, decrease over the first 2 stitches, single crochet 1 in the next 6, and repeat that around for 42 stitches. Okay, this completes round 19. And for round 20, we're going to do a decrease over the first 2 stitches. And then we're going to single crochet 1 in the next 5 stitches. And we're repeating that around, and we will have 36 stitches at the end of this round. Okay, so for round 21, we're going to start with a decrease. And then we're going to single crochet 1 in the next 4. And that's what we're repeating around. When you repeat it around, you should have 30 stitches total. Okay, so this is the last stitch of round 21. I'm going to take the marker out and slip stitch to clean the edge up. So we'll skip 1 stitch and then slip stitch into the next stitch, and then do that one more time just to close that off. We're gonna cut a long enough piece so we can sew the tail in later. And I'm just gonna pull that up and kind of like pull it closed like that. And then I'll either tuck this in or sew it in later. Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna tuck it in right here. At this point, we're going to turn the piece right side out because this yellow part is actually the inside. And we're just gonna turn it like that and kind of fix the little lumpy bumpy parts so that it's more in alignment with the inside. So like that. Kinda. Alright, so it's at this point we're gonna grab 6 stitch markers. Okay, and on the orange side we're going to find each point where each stitch on the top where we made our decreases, and we're going to mark each of those decreases, and they will be 4 stitches apart because the last round we worked 4 stitches, decrease, 4 stitches, decrease, like that. So we will have these points on the top, and then yeah, so these are my 6 marked decreases, and then I'm going to just like push this marked stitch through the other layer to kind of hold the 2 layers together. Put it on this side. The decreasing in the layer that's inside might not line up with the decreasing on the outside layer. That's fine. We're just gonna hold these layers together for this part, just like this. Okay, and then yeah, that's how it's gonna look. We should also note that there's an inseam, right, where we joined the inside and the outside layers, or we joined in the skipped back loops. That's round 5, so we can count from the center 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's right here where the increase is. You see that they kind of like they line up. So we're gonna grab another 6 stitch markers, and we're gonna mark the 6 increases that are on round 5. So you're just gonna go around the bottom points and mark all 6 of those increase stitches along that round, so they will line up together. Okay, so these are the marked stitches, and we'll move on to the next part. We have our 6, and I'm going to pull this tail back inside so that it makes it easier to sew for the next step, getting it out of the way. Grab your large eye needle that's for sewing yarn, and we're going to put the body color of the pumpkin on that needle, and we're going to use our stitch markers as a guide. Go into the marked stitch and go through both layers, and we're just going to weave our yarn in and out of the layers and sew these 2 layers together at this and make a seam. So this part does not have to be perfect. I mean, the goal is to work a straight enough vertical line down the pumpkin toward the base as, you know, as humanly possible. But we are going to be going over this with some surface crochet later on. So, I mean, it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be segmented off, if that makes sense, so that we can stuff each piece of it, each quarter of it, or it's in six, so each sixth piece of it. I don't know. All you're going to do is just sew down toward the other stitch marker in alignment with the stitch marker, like I'm doing. And I put this on like 2 times speed so that you didn't have to sit through me sewing this up all the way. But yeah, that's what you're going to do. You're just going to go, and then what I did right here is I created some knotting so that it wouldn't come out just by going through the stitch and pulling up like a loop and then knotting it back. You're going to try to use a continuous piece of yarn if you can, and just work across the pumpkin. So you're going to work from the top down to the 5th round, and then you're going to work across, back up, and then kind of like a zigzag motion up and down the pumpkin is what I did. And that's what I recommend to do, just so that you don't have to weave in too many ends and it be too crazy during this process. So that's what I suggest, is make some knotting so that your yarn doesn't start pulling in weird directions, and then go back up toward the last round you made, going through the increase sections that were marked off and just weaving in and out the ends. Like I said, it doesn't need to be a perfect stitch. It just needs to be something that is a seam, because we're going to use the seam later on to do surface crocheting. How many times did I say that? I'm sorry. But yeah, just continue. I'll show you this part of the segment, and then that's what you're going to repeat going around the whole pumpkin. So before I move on, I wanted to kind of show you guys how we're going to stuff it and show you that, yeah, sewing these two parts segmented the piece off, so I was able to stuff it. So just wanted to kind of demonstrate that really quickly to show you what we're going for. And you see how lumpy and bumpy it looks right now. Don't worry. Trust the process. Trust me. Please. No. I feel like that's what tutorials are, right? They're like a trust the process situation. Anyways, so that's what it looks like with just with just the stitch, the seam that I just made. And so for the next part, I'm just going to do a time, like a really fast sped up time lapse showing me sewing the next few segments, or the next segment, just going from the top of the pumpkin down to the round 5, so that you guys can kind of see what you're going to do next. And I'll just speed it up so that it makes it a little easier for video's sake. And so, yeah, I'm going to speed it up, and then we'll meet back later when you have all 6 of your segments stitched and ready to be stuffed. I have my 6 little segments right here, and I'm going to stuff each segment. I'm thinking we want to stuff it so that we could see the little grooves, so stuff it well, like kind of like all the way down as much as you can. Maybe want to leave this like bottom base a little flat, or it's gonna make it a little flat. So we're just gonna stuff it and see what happens. See what happens. Each little segment just kind of break apart each little piece. Yeah. It's gonna give it a little, I don't know. Take the stitch marker out. I don't know why it's still in there. So just gonna stuff it. Make it look like very pumpkin-y. Kind of like do that and push this in. See, it's kind of getting a little more pumpkin-y feel to it. Just keep stuffing. Just keep stuffing. So we're gonna have a thing that looks like this. It's pumpkin-y, right? It's getting there. Take these ends, put them on the needle, and like literally just pull them through and down to hide them on the inside. And kind of cut this because it's on the inside now. Okay, so I'm back. I reached the point where I'm satisfied with how stuffed the pumpkin is. I'm good with, and I shaped it the way I want. So now I'm going to grab my crochet hook and the place where I tied off my yarn, and I'm just going to chain up one and slip stitch around the pumpkin's edge, going through both layers. If you don't have any yarn there to slip stitch with, just, do a slip knot, chain it through, and just work around the pumpkin. So you want to just make sure you close each of those layers together, and you should have 30 slip stitches around, because when we finished rounds 21 on each layer, we had 30 stitches. So just do that around, slip stitch to close, and I will meet back up with you guys for the next step, because you're not done yet. I'm sorry. Okay, so this next step is optional. What you're going to do is take your hook and count from the center up to your 5th round where we began our seaming closed, and you're going to grab your yarn and just hook it onto your hook and pull it through, so you have 2 loops that are through. Then you're going to kind of tighten it a little bit, and that's your tail. This is your working yarn. You're going to go into the round right above that, so you've inserted into the point where your increases are, and you're going to hook your yarn around it and pull that through the next round up. And then you're going to pull that loop through the loops that you had on there, and it's like you're doing a slip stitch, and try our best to wrap it around the hook so that we can pull it through like so. And then we're just going to loop it through the 2 loops that are already on the hook, and that's what you're repeating. And you're just going to go through the increases that we made, which is why we marked them off the first time. So that's where we sewed originally, if you could kind of see the rough bumpy sewing we did. And you're just going to keep going and follow that line up toward the decreases, because when we're going to the middle section, that's where we just single crocheted in each stitch around. And then when we're getting closer to the top, we're going to reach the decrease section that we did. So you're just going to try and line it up as best as possible. And this part is really easy to frog if you don't like how it looks and fix. So you're just going to like continue to do that. And you have to kind of trust the process of turning the pumpkin to fit the working yarn on the hook, because it's going from inside the pumpkin and it's hard to kind of maneuver that. It was, at least for me. So that's why I'm saying that. And then just gonna like work up the pumpkin, and then I'll show you what it looks like closer to the end result, so you don't have to just watch me struggling here. So I reached the top of the pumpkin, and this is the last round where I did the slip stitches. And I'm just going to do my last slip stitch surface crochet there, and I'm going to cut it right there, and I'm going to sew the end in immediately. I know, who am I? But yeah, grab your sewing needle and then just follow what I do. I'm just going to insert into the round, pull it out. I'm going to pull it back out through another stitch. Then I'm going to make a knot to secure what I just did. And then I'm going to weave the ends in and hide it inside the pumpkin's pumpkin. You're going to sew the end that you joined in as well. But look at how much cleaner the little lumps of the pumpkin become when you just do a little surface crochet up the side. It'll clean up the edge and make this a little less lumpy looking, which is what I really enjoy about that. So I'm going to repeat this around to kind of clean up the little lumpiness, and that way I can kind of like do this, and I don't know, it just looks so much nicer. I'm going to repeat this around and sew the ends in and all that jazz. So that's just going to be what I repeat, is surface crocheting up the side to clean the edge up. At the end of working this kind of like spines for the pumpkin, you're gonna have these little pieces that you're going to want to sew in, like I showed you with the first one I did. But look at how much neater the pumpkin looks with these little spines added. So I think that, yeah, I know I said it was optional, but it's looking very necessary, to be honest, because it's giving the little compartments more structure. So I guess I would say sew the piece first, like I showed you, and then do the surface crocheting in this body color of the same color as the pumpkin. And then I'm going to just sew each strand in and hide the ends that are inside as well. So that way, yeah, there's a lot of ends to be sewn in. You could just like I mean, you don't have to sew them in. You can kind of like hide them inside the little pieces of the pumpkin if you want. But if you're going to sew this, I would suggest sewing everything in. It's just 12 strands that you have to sew in. Okay. And then this is the little top to the pumpkin. It's going to be like that. We're going to do the facial features. And one thing I wanted to talk about is the change in yarn weight. So for the pumpkin, the stem, and the insides, I used a 4-weight yarn. I tried the facial features with a 4-weight yarn and I dropped down some hook sizes, but I feel like, hold on, this has got something on it. I feel like it just didn't work. It didn't work for me. It looks kind of weird and bulky. But if you guys want to work in the 4-weight yarn, you can do that. And so this is kind of just a notation. I wanted to just re-record the whole thing for the facial features and all of that, but I think that that's kind of a not wise decision, because then I'm gonna just be sitting here all day recording and it's the same pattern. It's just going to be done in a smaller weight yarn, a 3-weight. This is a mandala. This is the guts of a mandala that I used to work on a separate project, and I decided to try it with a 2.75 millimeter. If you have a 2.5 millimeter hook, that also works. It's just a really way smaller hook for what you're doing is what I recommend. And then you're just gonna do the patterns that are in this tutorial. You're just gonna grab a different yarn. You can do black, yellow, whatever color you want for the eyes and the mouth. And yeah, so personally, I grabbed a 3-weight mandala in yellow. Just, you know, some of the scraps from that project. So if you want your facial features to be smaller, which definitely I recommend going down the yarn size to a smaller yarn and a smaller hook, I recommend that for this. And I think that, yeah, I'm going to show you guys both so you can make that decision for yourself. If you don't have a 3-weight yarn, that's totally fine. You could just use the 4-weight. If you wanted to go down another size yarn, that's also fine. I feel like one of the problems I would run into with this is the snap is barely large enough to fit on here, so that's another thing. I also believe I recommended that, you know, instead of snapping on the facial features like that, I mean, you could pin them on and make a pin cushion so you have ready available pins. Like, there's options. I'm going to work some of the little smaller facial features and then apply them and see what they look like and show you guys that. So yeah, I just wanted to say that before I moved on and posted this as a tutorial. Thank you guys for listening, and here are the facial features and the mouths that you can make. I also included some extra facial features in the written pattern that will be posted onto the blog when this tutorial goes live. So just so you know. All right. So it's about the time to create the facial features. And after I make the facial features, I'm going to show you guys how to attach the little magnets. All right, we're going to start with a slip knot, a loose slip knot, like we've been. Make a magic ring. And to begin, for round 1, we're going to work 6 single crochet into the magic ring. All right, let me put the stitch marker, and then I'm going to tighten the tail. For round 2, we're going to work 6 increases. So we're going to do an increase in each stitch around. And we should have 12 stitches when we are complete with this round. All right. So for round 3, what we're going to do is we will single crochet into the first stitch, then do an increase in the next stitch, chain 2, into the same stitch we're going to also work another increase, and then single crochet into the next stitch, skip 1, and slip stitch into the next 2 stitches. Cut the yarn and pull this tail through. Just gonna grab the tail and then loop it through the next stitch to hide it. And that's how you hide the tail and give it a little seamless look, and then just insert your hook into a stitch and kind of make a knot. That way you can keep your work secured. And then grab one of these snaps with the male side, because it's protruding. So the protruding side, this is what you're gonna, so we're gonna sew this on to the center of the eye. So you're gonna grab your sewing needle that has the wide eyelet. So I decided to get the thinner one so I could actually sew the piece on. So yeah, that's what I'm going to demonstrate for you guys. So I like to grab the tail end yarn first and just sew a few stitches with that. So just put it on my needle. Place my piece kind of like centered and just pull the yarn through, and we're gonna go into the piece and just sew. And we go back into the piece and then put it into a stitch in between stitches. I like to go in between the stitches so that I hide the tail as best I can, and then go back out. And that's just something I'm repeating around, is just in and out of the stitches, just securing this bit. Just using the tail that I tightened earlier when I was making the magic ring. So I'm gonna go back. I already got all 4 corners sewn in, so I'm gonna tie this off, and so I'll just tie this yarn off and weave it in. Alright, I'll weave that in. Alright, so these are the 2 teardrop shaped eyes. I like to put them on kind of like slanted sideways because they look kind of evil like that. Yeah, let's get started. We're gonna start with the square eye. So you're gonna take your yarn and you're going to create your magic ring. So make a slip knot and then go into the loop and chain up and pinch like we've been doing. So for this eye, you're going to start with 8 single crochet into the magic ring. Careful not to split your yarn. Oop, my yarn's deciding on its own that it doesn't. Yeah, okay. So 3. Great, that's 8. Make sure you count. And then we're gonna pinch right here and pull the tail and close the hole. And grab a stitch marker. Place it on the first loop, or the loop. And then we're going to do this repeat. So we're going to single crochet, and then we're going to increase in the same stitch. We're going to increase, chain 2, and then increase again. And that's going to create the corner of the square. And what you're just going to do is, ooh, what is that? It's a piece of lint. I'll just remove it later. What you're going to do is repeat that. You're going to single crochet in the next stitch and then do an increase, chain 2, increase in the same stitch. And that's just gonna be what you repeat around. Make sure you kind of scooch this over because it can hide the stitch that you're supposed to work into. Increase, chain 2, increase. Super simple, easy. And that's our 3rd. Now we're going to do our 4th corner. And you're going to want to sew the ends in. All right, so that's, all right, so this is the square eye, and then what you're going to do is remove the stitch marker. That's a stitch right there. You're skipping this stitch and then slip stitching into the next 2 stitches like that. And then you're just gonna cut the yarn. Just cut the yarn long enough tail to sew, and you're just pulling it through. And then tightening it right there. Kind of make it like seamless, and then, oh shit, well, I did not mean to do that. Bloopers. All right, well, that was unfortunate. I could probably still use this, but yeah, so this is the first square eye. So if you put it right here, this is what it looks like, as if the pumpkins got a light inside of it and it's lit up inside. So you can make these in like black or another yellow color, or even like glow in the dark yarn would be cool, I think. So just repeat this a second time. So you have your 2 eyeballs, and then we can make more, or if that's all you want to make, that's fine, but I will have all of the I will chapter everything so you can kind of like move through the tutorial and see which eye shape you want, and I'll show you the eye shapes in the beginning so you can kind of know where to, or I'll show you the eye shapes in the beginning of the tutorial too, so you know what shapes you have to work with before you want to make them, I guess. But yeah, so let's do the triangle. Okay, so we're gonna take a long enough tail to sew in the piece. I'm going to create a loose slip knot. So we just wrap it around, make a slip knot like that, and then we chain 1 and single crochet. We're going to work 6 single crochet into this magic ring slip knot that we just made. Then we're going to pull the tail to close the stitches. Okay, for round 2, we're going to repeat this. Single crochet in the next stitch, work an increase, chain 2, in the same stitch, work another increase. And that's what you're repeating around. Single crochet 1, in the next stitch, all into that stitch, we're going to increase, which is 2 single crochet, chain 2, 2 single crochet, and then 1 single crochet 1, increase, chain 2, increase, or 2 single crochet. And that's the triangle. We're taking the stitch marker out, skipping that stitch, slip stitching into the next 2, and then let me cut the yarn and pull up the tail to pull it out. I'm gonna sew it in. I like to just get this stuff out of the way because it's overwhelming later to sew all these ends in, and then it just gets, it's not fun. So this is the triangle, and I'm just going to sew in a back piece. So that ends the eyeball section. So that ends the eyes. So this is the smile one, missing teeth, blocky. I'm going to start with a 5-inch tail, something like this. Create a slip knot. And then we're going to chain 13. Okay, 13. So we're going to start by skipping the first stitch right here and then slip stitching into the next. Then we're going to slip stitch into the next two. 1, 2. We will chain 2. So this is like a repeat section. We're going to chain 2. A single crochet into the next stitch. So we're single crocheting, and chain 2, and then we're going to slip stitch into the next 4 chains. So we're going to drop down into the next chain and slip stitch 1, 2, 3, and the 4th one's right here. So it's looking like this. Then we are going to repeat what we did in the parentheses. So we're going to chain 2. Single crochet into the next stitch. Chain 2. And then slip stitch into the remaining 3. Then what we're going to do is we're going to be working along the other side of the chain that the foundation chain. So we're going to start by chaining 1. So we're going to continue by chaining 1 and then slightly turning the work. We're going to slip stitch into this next. So we're slip stitching into this next chain, single crocheting in the next, stitch. We're going to chain 2. We're going to slip stitch into this stitch right here. It's in between, it's where we slip stitched to join the chain 2. We're gonna slip stitch into there and then into the next stitch as well for slip stitching. Then we will be chaining 2. Work into the next stitch. We're gonna do a half double crochet, which I yarned over for before saying anything. So we're gonna insert it into that stitch right next to it where these 3, is it 3? Where these slip stitches are right here. We're gonna work a half double crochet into that stitch. Then we're gonna double crochet in the next 2 stitches. So there's 4, I think it's a, so we're gonna double crochet into the next 2. And then in the next stitch, we're going to work a half double. Like so. Then we will chain 2 and then slip stitch into the next stitch. And then we're going to also work another slip stitch in the next. So that's 2 slip stitches total right there. And then we're not done. We're going to chain 2, single crochet into the next, and then in our last 2 we're going to do a slip stitch. So we're just gonna slip stitch 1 and then on to this one slip stitch, and then just cut the, we're gonna chain and then pull a tail and cut this yarn and sew the back piece on. But this is what this smile looks like. I'm gonna insert my hook into the last slip stitch and then have you guys chain up so that it can kind of look similar to the other side of the smile. But yeah, okay, so this is the one of the mouths, one of the little smiles we're going to be working with for our jack-o'-lantern face. I'm going to set this aside and then sew the back piece on. I think that the back piece is going to be centered on the lowest part of the smile, right here, and then you can like flip it whichever way you want the smile to appear. So that's one of the smiles made. So we're gonna do another like 5-inch tail, make a slip knot. We will start by chaining 13. Okay. All right, we're going to start by skipping the first chain and slip stitching into the next. Then we will single crochet into the next stitch or chain. Work a half double in the next. Chain 1. Slip stitch into the same stitch that we just worked. Slip stitch into the next stitch. Chain 2. Double crochet into the next 4. And this is the fourth one, the fourth double crochet. We worked our 4 double crochet. We're going to chain 2. Right, now, slip stitch in this, slip stitch into the same stitch that we worked the last double crochet. And then slip stitch into the next stitch as well. So we're slip stitching twice. Then we're going to chain 1, half double crochet into the next stitch. Single crochet into the next stitch, and then we're going to make a slip stitch into the last stitch of the row. And then we're going to chain up 1 and then pull a long enough tail to sew, and just pull that through. All right, now this is smile number 2. Missing teeth, or very creepy happy. I don't know. So I'm gonna put that to the side so we can sew later. Okay. Moving on, we're going to do smile number 3. We're gonna start with a chain of 13 again. I need this 5-inch long tail. I'm gonna make a slip knot, and I'm going to chain 13. So we're gonna call this smile number 3, and it's the large smile. To start off, we're going to skip the first chain from the hook and slip stitch into the second chain from the hook. We are going to single crochet 1 in the next 2 stitches. We will half double crochet and then 1 in the next 2 stitches. Then we're going to do 2. Then we will double crochet 1 in the next 2 stitches. And then we're gonna work back down. So we made these. Okay, so then we're going to half double into the next 2 stitches. Single crochet 1 in the next 2. And then we're going to end with a slip stitch into the last chain. Gonna chain up 1 and pull a tail and cut the yarn. That's the large smile. You can, you know, flip it, do all the things, but this is what this smile looks like. So that's smile 3. I'm grabbing the same needle that I sewed the eyes, the back of the eyes on with, and I'm using it to sew the snap on for this one. Okay, so we want it to be centered. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So I'm gonna scooch it over just a little bit. And then I have 1, 2, 3. And then we have 1, 2, 3. Technically 1, 2, 3. It's right there, centered. That's how I placed my eyeball, just to get the, let me cut that, the best placement. That's where I like it. Now I'm gonna just go into a stitch and come out of here. You kind of gotta wiggle it, because yeah, so we're gonna pull it out and leave some of this out as a tail to sew in later. Okay, I'm gonna go in and then I'm gonna come back out, going up. Take this piece out, that pin, and then I'm gonna go into the stitch and come out of the center in between some other stitches. Can I grab it? Yes, I can. I like when things work out. All right, I'm gonna go back in, take this marker out that was holding it, pin, whatever it's called, going through and in. With this type of sewing needle, you want to be careful because it will break stitches apart. It breaks up homes. No, I'm just kidding. But so it went into that. I just flipped it over, and we're gonna go, I like to kind of hold it, we're gonna go in between this next stitch cluster area. So we're gonna go into the next stitch and just try to pull out in between these stitches right underneath this notch in the snap. Okay, actually I'm gonna undo that. I want to go in a little bit closer to my snap because I kind of, yeah. All right, I'm just gonna hold it here. I want to get out of the stitch. I'm gonna go into the stitch that's right here. So you want to kind of place it close-ish to where you're going to pull it out from. And then I'm going to go very close to the notch, pulling it through those stitches so it doesn't get caught. All right, so I'm pulling it like that, and now I'm going to go into the stitch that's close. Then I'm going to go into the little notch that's closest to where I pulled the stitch out, and then go down into some of the in-betweens these stitches. So yeah, come on. I might have to wiggle it a little bit, or get something else to pull it, like pliers. Okay, I got it. Hand strength, don't have. All right, I think this is good enough. You can go around again if you want. I don't want, okay? I'm over this. I don't want. All right, so I'm just going to sew this close enough to this end, make a knot, and then I'm going to double knot it, and then we're going to hide that end inside the pumpkin's lump. I don't know what to call these. These are lumps, right? All right, so I'm gonna put my hook in there and just fish them out. Hopefully I don't mess anything up. There it goes. Ta-da. Let's push that in there. Nothing to see here. Never happened. Grab 2 pins to help you. And you're going to want to use the same exact snap, because like I said, these are the snaps I used for my eyes, so I want to be able to just like put them there and they snap on. I'm going to do the same thing I did. We went 1, 2, and technically like 3. 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then 1, 2, 3 from the top. So kind of like right about here. About now. It's a little closer to the center than it started off being, because of the moving and the sewing. So what do you guys think? Right about there? I am going to sew the snap on and meet back up with you guys. All right, so my video cut off while I was recording. Yay. So I had to delete a bunch of videos. Yay. So I'm just gonna do the last part of this. I think I did get to the point where I pulled out of this stitch, and we're just gonna double knot. We already did this for this eye, so it's kind of just repetitive at this point. So it's not that big a deal. I'm gonna just like cut this at the base so I could sew that, pull that in a little bit later. Not necessarily, doesn't necessarily need to be done immediately, just getting it ready to be done. All right, so I'm just gonna put my yarn onto my needle and prepare it. I'm gonna grab the other snap button. See how these are the ones that I guess you would say female male to go into mechanic terms. They call these with the indents the female side of the snap, and this is the male because this part goes into that part. So basically what I'm doing is I'm using this one because with the other pieces I actually used a lot of the male ones, so I'm going to do the opposite for the mouths, and I'm going to use these. So it's just preference, so that way I don't overuse. I don't use more of one kind than the other kind. Does that make sense? So I'm using these for this one for the pumpkin, for the mouths, because I have multiple mouths. But I'm gonna put it like right here, and I'm just gonna try to center it as much as possible, and just put this here to like hold the place, because maybe I'll go like lower, maybe I won't. But let me grab one of these guys, because I'm gonna put the snap like dead set in the middle, like right here, and then it's gonna be going like right here. So yeah, that's a good I think it's a good spot. I can't really get it on there, but it's gonna be like right here, and then the eyes are like up here. Maybe lower, maybe one lower. See, that's why it's good that I try it first. So it's just a little lower. Yeah. And then it would snap right here. Yeah. I'm gonna make some of these in like black, and I didn't do the tutorial with black. I did it with yellow because I wanted you guys to be able to see it a little bit more clearly, because black yarn is hard to do tutorials with. So yeah, but I am gonna make some in black. But yeah, so it's centered. I'm gonna count 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. So it's like touching the 11th round. 12 13, so it's 14. It's in between 14 and, did I say 11? So in between these two rounds is where you're gonna put the mouth, centered with the surface crocheting. Yeah. Wow. Okay. But yeah, I'm gonna sew this on. We're gonna repeat the same thing we did for the first two eyes. We're just gonna do it for the snap down here, and then yeah, I will see you guys when that is done, and you're basically done with this pattern at this point. Yeah, because you should have all of the mouths and the eyes made, or whichever ones you want to be the primary ones you make. You don't have to make all the eyes for it to still be a fun pumpkin toy. So yeah, so after this video is posted a few hours after, we're gonna do a CAL-OWEEN live stream on my channel, and then we're gonna mosey on over. Who even talks like that? We're gonna mosey on over to Ian's channel after the fact and watch a movie probably tonight. Or yeah, tonight. It's tonight, but I'm filming this days before. Allegedly days. One day before. So, alright then. I'll see you guys later. Thank you for watching, and hopefully you enjoy making this. Or not. Okay. Bye-bye.